Are ready? Okay. Good morning. You guys ready? Ready for day 2? Yeah. Yeah. I see some hungover faces. It's like a little bit, but that's good. All right. Well, welcome to day 2. I wanted to do some highlights of day 1. You can see some of the pictures here, some of the quotes that we captured. One was, wow. So that's always good to hear. Was really, really energizing. This is my, obviously, first Axoniq conference, and the energy definitely is palpable. I have to say, it's a little bit intimidating just how smart and the brain power in this room. That every conversation, it's just been very cool. So day 2, what's in store for day 2? So you can see it's the same format. We have a keynote, which will follow me. We'll do presentations, demos, as well as roundtables. Roundtables, you do have to sign up, so sign up at the front table, and then you meet in the foyer for that at that time. What is highlighted in blue is what has changed. So we have heard from many of you that you have flights to catch, and it's cutting it a little bit close. So we shaved off just 30 minutes or so, and we took them from breaks. So none of the content is changing. It's just we're taking a little bit of shorter breaks. How many of you got to play around with the new platform? I don't like that. That's like 25%. Come on, we can do better than that. I see you. So as a reminder, we have a contest that closes at 3 p.m. today. So in those breaks, in those workshops, go in and play. It's the new platform, and it's under Build. And then once you are building your application with our new development agent, if you go to Explore, you'll see everyone's, because they're all public right now. And the winners are the ones that have the most stars, the most ratings. So go in, look at them, explore them, and put a little star on the ones that you think are best. And then at closing, we'll tally up all the stars. They'll be very visible, so it won't be a secret who wins. And Allard will pass out some of the prizes. So I wanted to start day 2 with what I heard and what I think I learned from yesterday. And this is really important to me, because how many of you have been in organizations or been in, you're developing something and you're like, I wonder if customers actually want this. I wonder if we actually validated these ideas, right? I've been in those types of organizations, and I never want to be in those, right? I want to be in organizations that really care about user feedback, really care about how the customers are using it and the problems that we're solving for them. So as you know, and you look around, there's a lot of different types of people in this room. So this year we made a concerted effort not just to have developers and architects, but also to have CTOs, CIOs, CFOs, COOs in this room. So it's a combination of really diverse minds that all care about the same thing. So this is what I heard. And please tell me, please find me. I'm in bright blue today. Please find me if I have this wrong. But for devs, I heard V5 is exciting. That's exciting. It's going to make life a little bit more simpler. The launch speeds things up. It's very innovative. But it is hard convincing people to make the shift over. I heard a chuckle, so I'm hearing some nods. Okay, great. So if I'm wrong, come find me again. For the security folks in the room, I heard love the single source of truth and the replayability, the explainability, awesome. Data leakage controls is very frightening, especially with AI, which brings to trust concerns all around, especially when models are training on your data, then where is it going, et cetera. And then business leaders, what I heard from them is while their teams understand the value of event sourcing in Axoniq, the run-of-the-mill business leader, and I can attest for this since I did not know what event sourcing was until I joined here. Do not know what event sourcing is at all. Therefore, can't understand the value of it. However, they're very excited about the promise of AI and may even be naive about what it can do and not do, right? And really excited about the insights that lead to the innovation, especially when you think about an event-driven application. And there was a single thread between all three categories that really struck me, and it didn't surprise me because I've heard it throughout the organization. But all three said it's complex. Do we agree with that? It's complex? No, I'm seeing some no's. It's not, is it complex to people outside this room? Okay, now I'm seeing some nods. Now I'm seeing some nods. So then I'm thinking, how can I help? Thinking about the pain points that all of you have. So this is my pledge, my promise, my commitment to you. And really not mine, the company's. And I'd argue it should be the community's as well. So devs, my rallying cry, like when I'm waking up in the middle of the night when I'm thinking about things, it should be, how do I help you innovate? Period, the end. How do I help you innovate and go faster? For security folks, it's how do I help you protect and secure and understand what's going on in your organization? Like I'm like your fellow watchdog right beside you. And for business leaders, how do I decrease time and increase value? So speed up time to market, basically. And again, the common thread of all of that, I think, is how do I simplify it? Where we don't have to go and have this huge explanation of what event sourcing is. And there's not this argument of like versus CRUD, da-da-da-da. Like it's all about the value it brings. And we lead with that more of like, who was it? Someone at dinner. You said, you ask people, if you're not doing event sourcing, you are consciously choosing not to care about your data or the history of your data. And that's pretty powerful when you like say it like that. And you didn't even say the word event sourcing. You just challenged them with a question. So my rallying cry is to simplify for all of you so we can get more people in this room. So it's not, what's beautiful about this room and also troubling about this room is I'd argue you guys are probably the 1% of your peer group, right? Of brain power, of brain capacity. Yeah, like I've been told geniuses understand this stuff. Your run-of-the-mill or entry-level developer, oftentimes it's not to say they can't, but it's really, really, really hard for them to get up to that. So I want to change that narrative, because remember yesterday when I said I need it for the Rosalinds in my life? We all need it for the Rosalinds in the life. That's so easy, so all of our applications has that context, and we can be responsible in the age of AI. So with that, and please come find me if you disagree. I'd love to talk about this. With that, it's my honor to introduce Travis. Travis is a good, dear friend of mine. We go back almost a decade. And he simplified Python. And actually, when I talked to Allard about, what about Travis Oliphant for our keynote? He's like, he's a Python guy. I'm like, it doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter. Because even more so, we're getting these polyglot systems. And really, open source is such a beautiful fabric. And Travis is full-on open source. He's the co-founder of Anaconda. He's the inventor of NumPy, if anyone has used NumPy before. He's the founder of Open Teams that helps teams with open source projects. And he's the co-founder of the Open Source AI Foundation in the US that's working with our US government, which God knows we need some help. So it's my pleasure to introduce Travis.
I think I'm mic'd up. Is this mic working? Great. Down here? Right there? Better? Okay. Great. Thank you, Jessica. Or Jess. I appreciate it. It's great to be here. First time in Amsterdam. And all my slides will be blocked. That's okay. There's nothing important on them anyway. But hopefully we have a chance to have a conversation about AI. That's my understanding. I'm supposed to be the AI guy, right? I understand this is event sourcing. Axoniq is a fantastic Java library. Just to get a feel for how many people that write code are in the room. Would you raise your hand if you write code? Okay, and how many of those people that write code have ever written a line of Python? Okay, so there's a lot of you. Y'all understand some of the details. Now, how many of y'all have written scientific code or AI code or code that runs a model or builds a model? A fewer. Those are the ones that probably knew what NumPy was. Some others didn't. What about websites? Anybody write websites? Anybody create websites in the room? A few people. Everybody? Yeah. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited here to talk about AI. I think about AI a lot. I kind of got pulled in. Sometimes people say, "Oh, you're the godfather of AI." I don't think I'm anything like that. Maybe a forefather, maybe somebody who was pioneering out there, digging trenches and letting water come from the hills into people that could actually then build AI. Yeah, okay, I'll take that. With some early sci-fi conferences where some of the early AI innovators in Toronto were coming down, definitely can take credit for some of that. And then currently working closely with folks at Google and Meta on the, let's call them array libraries that are massive, that I wish were a little more NumPy-like, but are much bigger. This is TensorFlow and PyTorch and JAX. So I get to work with those folks and usually trying to help them understand how to make their code more open source friendly and then more Pythonic. Like those two things and whatever Pythonic means, just helping people understand that story. Now, some of you, has anybody seen the Python documentary that just came out? It's actually done by somebody in the Netherlands. I mean, Python itself comes from here, comes from this area. Everybody know that, right? It's a beautiful documentary just made. You can go on YouTube and find it. It's a little bit long, an hour and a half. But what I loved about the documentary is it shows the power of community and grassroots movements to build something. And that's the thing that drew me to Python for a long, long time. Is there's not a corporate influence making it happen. There's actually a bunch of people making it happen and then a bunch of corporations trying to figure out what in the heck is this? How do I follow that around? And it's just amazing to watch how that worked. It's sort of a real success story in the world of open source and the power that open source has had to take over the planet. And I looked about 7 years ago, I was looking at, let's look at the innovations of the past 10 years and realizing that like all of them have come, the ones, the IoT, the cloud, data science, AI, it's rooted in open source communities, in people. I think that gives us a lot of hope. I think we need that today. There's a lot of challenges in the world, right? But it's beautiful in a world with challenges to realize that when we come together as humans to solve problems together, we actually do amazing things. As evidenced by the city you live in here, those who do live here, as evidenced by the fact we could all come here, travel several thousand miles on a plane over the past several days to get here. It's amazing what we do when we can cooperate together. And I think it's important to think about that and remember that, because we're entering a world where we can have massive prosperity for many, many people, or we could have kind of a dystopia. And it's one of the things I think about a lot. And so when we talk about the future of AI, I think it belongs to those who own their AI. I think it's really important. So I talk about this a lot, and actually Open Teams as a company, it builds on the power of open source to bring sovereign AI to the world so people can actually own the AI that they depend on. Even though there's a lot of other pressures to trade independence for convenience, which is commonly done, easy to do, we're working against that. So I have a deep history in open source. I'll just go a little quickly here, just talking about where I come from. My passions, I love math, I love physics, I love science. I thought I'd be a scientist forever, and that's just all I do. That's what I did my early part of my career. That's when I started writing SciPy and NumPy, was as a grad student in the Mayo Clinic. I started in science. I was doing satellite remote sensing, looking at electromagnetic radiation from the Earth and trying to infer wind speed from it. So just trying to understand large data sets and what it can do with those large data sets. That more science in medicine, medical imaging in particular, MRI, ultrasound, led to Python. I encountered it very early now, 1997. So that's why I got involved kind of early, more luck than anything. But I was a professor, and I pursued life as a professor for many, many years, really until about 18 years ago. I was pursuing math, publishing papers, trying to understand the world. The software and papers and grants actually led to software. And writing software ended up that ended up being the biggest impact I had. Right? I would write papers and I'd come to an audience and there'd be 10 or 15 people. They might say, oh, that's a great paper, but just see what I did. Like most of the questions weren't really questions about my work, but questions about how did I know that their work might actually be better than what I did. It's very common, right? But then in open source communities, I found real interest. And yes, people would talk about the work they were doing and how it related to what I was doing, but I really found the power of being able to create communities. I got addicted to that. I would write code, make it available on the net, and then somebody from all across the world would download it, make comments, talk about it, and then just submit pull requests and submit suggestions. Actually, it was before pull requests. They just give me a patch file that I'd have to then download and then install. It was very slow back then, very deliberate. With GitHub, it makes it much, much easier. Although, with ease comes a lot of people now coming to the table. A lot of people coming, and then there's some additional challenges that occur. But then these tools ended up getting used by so many people. That's probably why I'm here today, because these tools got used by so many people, including scientists who started to write AI tools, that I have a chance to work on that. But those side projects, the things I did for a hobby, the things I did just on the side, ended up becoming dominant in my life. And I went from this, distractions of science, from a scientist to a open source developer, and then over the past 15 years, kind of a pointy-haired boss, really, trying to help grow people, and sometimes not a very good one. So I love the Dilbert thing because that's essentially, I lose some brain cells, but I love surrounding myself with smart people. I love thinking about hard problems, and I still do have a few ideas up my sleeve for technology that we're working on. My long-term passion has been making array programming. It's called tensors now, although I would drag kicking and screaming to call them tensors. They're really ND arrays. Tensors are another mathematical object that those poor mathematicians have to come up with a different word for. But these ND arrays, I want to make them popular, particularly in a world where everyone's excited about objects. Arrays are important, and they think differently. It's a little bit like row-based programming, object storage versus column-based programming is one way to think about it. But along the way, I also became deeply passionate about entrepreneurship and helping create ecosystems. And so co-founded Anaconda. It really spun out of something called Continuum. That's where I connected with Jess. She helped us at Anaconda significantly, helped us take Anaconda from an open source group of enthusiasts to a company that was selling things a little more strongly. So definitely appreciate meeting Jess again, and excited that she's still involved helping other companies do the same. Now I've taken that passion. I'm still I guess I'm a serial entrepreneur. I don't think of myself that way. I'm just a creator I'm passionate about helping people be prosperous. I'm passionate about helping people grow and create connections to things that'll make them more money, make them more wealthy. I look around the world and there's so much inequality, there's so much poverty. There doesn't have to be. And we have a world where we're going to have immense prosperity, but how do we get it shared and distributed? And so, I don't know how to solve that for everybody in all ways, but I know how to get involved and write some code. I know how to get involved and write a company, create a project, do something, and so I'm just kind of a doer. My tendency is to be more of a doer than a speaker, and that's kind of, I've done a lot of different things. Quantsite, open teams, these are the things we do, but I also have a fund family, and then an incubator to help entrepreneurs. I really want to see a explosion of entrepreneurship, which I think we will need in the coming years, and I'll talk more about that. About 3 years ago, I gave a talk about the future impact of AI ML. This is pre-GPT, this is pre-chat, right? AI ML, it's been around for a long time. Been thinking about this for 40, 50 years. The basic concepts have been there, but we didn't have the computing, we didn't have the parallelism to really, and the data distribution to really kind of get over that double descent hump of the more data, shouldn't that just give us more complicated models that are going to be therefore worse? Oh, this sort of thing happens as we add more and more data, where apparently it's an optimization trick. We can go into more detail. We're still figuring out what happened. How did we actually go to a place where massive data and massive models gives us better results? Very interesting. But we still have some of these problems today. I looked at this and I wanted to show it because these are the problems I saw 3 years ago. We still have these problems. It's not like it's been solved. We still have many silos of technology advancement, many silos of cloud computing. Software is definitely lagging hardware. Hardware innovations are amazing, but the software to take advantage of them are still lagging, which is actually, NVIDIA loves this. It's why their stock keeps going higher and higher, because it's not fundamentally true that the software has to use NVIDIA chips, but it's just what's been tested, and it's just what works fine, and then some of the compilers need to be improved. Organizational infrastructure, technology is changing faster than education can keep up. That was true 3 years ago. It's true even more today. That's one of the biggest challenges we face, is we have this onslaught of technology that's changing our world right under our feet, and we don't have awareness of how to deal with that. And so there's a lot of deep technical debt, lack of knowledge leading to balkanization of technology, that's happening too. Ever heard of vibe coding? Right, okay, raise your hand if you've vibe coded. Yeah, it's okay, I have. There's actually a space for it, and I'm glad, Jess, you're doing it. Everybody who's not technical should be vibe coding tomorrow, right? Because it helps you actually produce code and then get a feel for it. There's actually a perfect place for vibe coding to exist into the future. But if you're a deep developer, vibe coding isn't scary, because you're gonna have a bunch of people essentially producing what amounts to crap, right? That you're gonna have to deal with. So I'd say easy come, easy go. Like if you're vibe coding, don't be worried if it gets thrown away tomorrow, right? Because that's probably what it's worth. But it does what AI does today, which is really, really powerful, and which we all need to be doing more of. AI can help translation. It can help translate barriers between people that think differently. And we do. We get so specialized in our area, and it's beautiful, and it's wonderful. It's why we have this massive prosperity with our specialization. But then we have this, I don't know how to talk to somebody else. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't understand them. They're saying words I don't get. AI can help us. And for a long time, Python grew in popularity because it was a language that could kind of bridge that gap between the people that know what they want and the coders that knew how to spell it. And Python kind of fit this, oh, it's a language that kind of I don't have to learn too much. I can kind of write, hey, I'm coding, look at me. And what that enabled is somebody who knew what they wanted to write something that could show literally what they wanted instead of just trying to explain it in words. You know, the requirements gathering of a typical developer is what I want. Isn't it amazing? You can actually today go and somebody can vibe code a solution they're looking for. And then you can, as a developer, you can look at that and go, oh, that's what you want. Okay, sure, we can improve this. Because now you can see the code that it generated. So I think the ability to translate between humans is so powerful. And it's frankly the one use case of AI that's underdone, underrated, but needs to be done more and more and more. So I'm excited for that. But sorry for the sound, I know I'm going all over the place. I do think there's some key issues, and we could go on. I kind of want to have a kind of an honest talk about this. It's a pretty small room, and I know there's lots of questions, and I'm happy to take questions or meet people later. I think it's one of the most important things we can be talking about is what are the issues facing us that AI's coming, and we need everybody to participate in the conversation because of that. I'm a hyperdimensional guy. I like one of my zens is think in higher dimensions. When I think of the human experience, I think of all of us essentially in a large multidimensional space. And the possibilities of the planet is this huge hyperdimensional space, and each of us occupy a small part of it. And we're sort of exploring that space for ourselves. And the power is if I can learn from everybody else's exploration, we can actually come to know something bigger than each individually can do. We really do more together than we do alone because of that. But we have to communicate. We have to understand what somebody's seeing, what they're saying, and trust that what they're saying is because their experiences, and it's real. I know you all here have had different experiences than me, and I'm eager to listen. It's one of the key things. We have very capable AI. It's capable, it's pervasive, it's accelerating, and we're basically at a turning point. We can decide, are we going to use this to better all of us, or are we going to use this to separate us and to create more division? It's really actually important, and it'll come down. I was just watching a video, Veritasium. Anybody see Veritasium videos? Do you like that guy? I mean, he's pretty interesting. He does math videos. It was a video talking about networks and connected networks and kind of the observation that 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon or anybody else on the planet, like how does that happen? It actually is, when you look at the network theory that makes that happen, you realize why wouldn't it happen? Of course it happens. But all it needs is random connections. But those random connections have a secondary problem, is they enable contagion. They enable bad ideas to spread really quickly, and then trust to diminish very quickly as well. However, there's a positive aspect. Good ideas can also spread very quickly, and good things can happen very quickly, and we're kind of at that knife edge as a society right now because the interconnected network, AI is going to amplify it, and we each have a choice to make. Am I going to respond to good things and have to have some definition of what that means, and we all have to debate that and talk about it, but I'm going to respond to that, or I'm going to respond to things that create misery and suffering? And it's there for each of us. And what we do will have a big impact on what everybody experiences in the future. So it's a fascinating video. You should watch it. It's actually really compelling. So I like to talk about this as, will AI expand or diminish human agency, prosperity, and happiness? And we have that opportunity. It's amazing. It's right here before us. But what we do ourselves will work. Now, a lot of people talk about work in transition. AI is going to take our jobs. AI is going to replace people. Yes, AI will change things. Absolutely. It has already. Right? It will. Intelligence automation will reshape job requirements. Productivity gains are not distributed. I look at this, and I have different answers for this about I get asked all the time, will AI replace jobs? I say, yes, it will. So it sounds like we're having an economic conversation. So let's have that economic conversation, because why do you have the job you have today? The job you had today wasn't available 50 years ago, 20 years ago. We have it. Why do you have the job you have today? We need many, many more jobs in the future, because what will continue to be true tomorrow is we'll still be here. We'll still be serving each other. What is a job? A job is an opportunity to individually or collectively with other people serve other people and provide them what they want. And I guarantee that human wants and needs will not stop. That's something I can guarantee as well. People will still want things, and they'll still want to associate, and they'll change what those wants and desires are, but it'll definitely be there. So jobs will be plentiful. What isn't going to be necessarily plentiful is distribution of intelligence, distribution of capital, distribution of capability. That's where we can fix things. So it's not about AI replacing jobs, it's how do we use AI to create more prosperity globally and distributedly. So I think in the solution space, in these work in transition, entrepreneurship, education, capital reform, I'll talk a little bit about some of these things. We have a desperate need for what I'm calling digital sovereignty, and other people use that word too. That's why I settle on it. Digital sovereignty really amounts to data. Who owns your data? The biggest question I ask people when they're using AI, I heard it come up here, is what is your AI vendor doing with your data? If you're not asking that question, you should be, because it's going to determine. You just fix the audio. Sorry about that.
Oh, perfect.
Just it's not hanging on very well. So my ears apparently don't like to.
Yeah.
I have these large ears, I thought, but maybe they're not big enough yet. Thank you. Now I can hear myself even more. That's terrifying. We have this is one of the things I could talk about a lot, because I think it's one of the most important things we're going to be talking about over the next 50 years. As AI intelligence grows, it's really important to understand where did the data come from that trained that intelligence, and therefore who owns the AI model that data was trained from. I'd love to see a world where data follows people, and then people collectively can decide, do they share that data with their communities, do they share that data with other people, but it's data sovereignty. That's where digital sovereignty starts, and data sovereignty leads to model sovereignty. Where does that model? So who owns the rights to that model you're using? We are right now in the middle of creating policies, patterns, approaches to this very problem, but we're doing it in an ecosystem where so few people who are trying to make these decisions have an understanding of this. And it's not, that's the meaning of technology progress outpacing our ability to deal with it in productive ways. Now, we will deal with it eventually. The real question is how much suffering will we experience before we deal with it well. So I do know this will work eventually, but I'd love to see it work before my grandchildren's time, and that my children actually don't experience a massive disruptive world because of some of these things. That's my hope. Dependency on a model. So data, if your data is what drives the models. And if that model ends up, you could easily see a world where you have this great intelligence tool, but you're essentially outsourcing your intelligence to somebody else. And so there's a very strong possibility that we have these gravity wells. That's what the picture is sort of representing. We have a data gravity well, and then essentially we're being sucked into somebody else's black hole of their gravity well. Or another way to talk about it is feudalism. We have a big plantation or a big kingdom that we're essentially just working instead of having our own independence and ability to talk about our own self-determination. So we need to talk about digital sovereignty more, and there also capital reform will help us. There's another area where AI is potentially hurting us, or scary, is erosion of shared reality. We already see this, kind of that shared network question of how quickly information can spread, and that information that's not even real anymore. And you're sitting there going, wait, is this real? I think a couple of things will happen. I think we'll actually want to get together in person more. I think that'll be a trend that'll be fantastic. We should actually get together more and see people for real and get to know people, and not just a persona or an avatar or something that is representing that person. But it's happening now, and we'll have to be aware of it. And trust crisis is showing up everywhere. And this is at the root of a lot of the disruption that's happening. And AI can help. It's hurting now, actually. So how do we get to where AI is helping us? And I think it can in education, entrepreneurship, to create more systems. AI, we've heard this before, it mirrors and amplifies bias. It does. AI is just a tool. I am definitely of the camp that there's other innovations necessary before we're going to see something even approaching artificial general intelligence, or certainly the super intelligence people worry about. We're not there yet. That may happen, it could happen. I'm not concerned about that. I'm actually more concerned about natural intelligence hurting each other through these other effects with the simple AI we have today. That's much more risky than the artificial general intelligence somehow taking over the world. But because of this, because essentially AI can make us so confident in our wrong views because we have this justification. If you go and chat with ChatGPT and try it, you can basically have a great conversation with AI and it'll tell you how wonderful you are and how awesome your ideas are. And maybe they are awesome, and maybe a lot of part of them are, but maybe there's one part of your idea that's not quite great, that needs a little modification. That's my experience anyway. I think my ideas are great. Then I realize, talk to other people, put it up against other ideas, and I realize, oh yeah, I'm missing a bunch of stuff. We need that pushing up against each other to really come up with really great ideas, and that requires humans, not just everybody dependent on a few AIs. And then the other thing is disparate wealth will absolutely lead to disparate justice, and that'll happen more and more unless we try to figure that out, try to do something about it. Key to me, as I've talked about already, who owns your data? And I don't think this is a single answer. There's many hierarchies of ownership, all the way from your personal ownership to the communities you're a part of, to the companies you work for, to the governments you're a part of. Data ownership has multiple levels and different kinds of data, and we need different sovereign entities that are responsible, accountable. With sovereignty comes accountability. With sovereignty comes opportunity to serve. There's going to be AI-infused persuasion. That needs to be rooted in trust relationship with yourself. Like my ideal world is each of us has 1 to 1,000 AIs that are assisting us individually, that are trained on the things we care about and that are essentially sovereign to our data. And they're yours. They're sitting on a device. They're not sharing information to the cloud. You see what they're sharing. It's not just secretly behind your back giving away your information to somebody else. It's actually yours. And then those are helping you communicate with other people and AIs. I'd love a world like that where I can, make up for some of the gaps in my short-term memory, my ability to understand. I see people I've met and I'm really excited by our previous experiences together. I want to build on that. Oh, but I forgot their name. That's happened to you, I'm sure, right? And it's really embarrassing because it's like, I feel this really kinship with you, but I don't know your name, and that sounds so weird. I've experienced that for a long time, actually, because I come from a big family. My parents had 10 children. There's a reason for that, but when I go to family reunions, and their parents each had 10 children, so when I go to family reunions, I have 157 cousins. And they're literally, I've had this experience of, I know you, I should be related to you, I have no idea who you are. Eventually, I just started to go to family reunions and introduce myself again, right? And just get over that. Yep, I know who you are, but I'm going to say who I am. And some of my aunts and uncles would laugh, but they were grateful because they had forgotten my name. So I'm familiar with that, but we kind of need to give each other grace and recognize it happens to all of us, but also AI might help us there. And there's solutions for this question. I think it's an important question all of us have to be asking. How are we going from the potential problems to the potential solutions? And then the human aspect. AI needs to be aligned with the diversity of community values. This is another reason a single AI is not the answer. If you think of AI and you think, oh, it's going to be ChatGPT or Grok or Perplexity or Anthropic, it's way too few. Like we literally need hundreds of thousands of AIs that are helping us, using us, not one, not two, not a few. Because the diversity of humanity is the beauty of humanity and the ability to come together and build something that none of us can understand individually, but together we can appreciate and benefit from. We need to keep doing that. Economies are basically, the lesson of civilization, I think, is that we can either, kind of succumb to single cult-like movements with single personalities, or we can actually distribute that into multiple communities that live in harmony with each other and benefit from each other, serving each other at scale. So I think one of the answers to the loneliness that'll come from AI is actually re-energizing in communities and recognizing the most important work you do is the work you do in your communities. And that could be starting with your family, starting with your local clubs, starting with people in your neighborhood, but it could also, because of the network infusion of connectedness, it could be people across the globe. That's what I saw over the past 30 years, is people essentially taking the community concept and extending it to people they'd never met before. These online communities. And those are rich, those are meaningful. It's caused me to believe the most important thing you do in your life are the things you do with your communities. Now, how do you do that more? They have to enable that in a solution space. How do we do that more? So how do we actually re-energize the natural intelligence, use AI to refocus on we know how to create natural intelligence. Let's create more of that and create more of community growth of natural intelligence. So I want to close by talking about some solution directions, and let's see how much time I have, because I can go on and on about some of these. So I'll have to. What time is it? 15 minutes, great, excellent. I just kind of gave a little touch point because we talk about the bad things that could happen and the problems that emerge. I think they're amazing solutions. And I look at where can AI actually help us amplify these solutions. And this is just one set. And as you think about it, you'll come up with others. And I encourage you to do that and work in your own communities to actually introduce those solutions. So they're separated into digital sovereignty. How do we amplify more of that, including AI sovereignty and ownership of the data and the models? Education. And education is really critical. And it's actually, we need to rethink what education means. It's not just something that happens when you're little. It's something that continues throughout your life. And how do we make our societies kind of understand that and have institutions of higher learning constructed to amplify that? Recognize that learning is something we're going to do for our entire lives. I'm big on entrepreneurship. I think that's a really critical way out of some of the caveats. And that means we need places for people to, I've learned a lot about it. I've been doing entrepreneurship for the past 20 years. Learned a ton, stuff that I had no idea about, and I've loved to pass some of that information on to others. So one of the things I try to do is create other companies or help people create other companies and create entrepreneurship. One of the reasons I'm here is actually to meet with the founder of Axoniq and help and talk about how we grew at Anaconda and some of the ways they can do that as well. Capital reform. I'll just touch on this a little bit, but there's massive opportunity here to improve access to capital. And I think there's some simple solutions too. They're simple but not easy, and there are many, many years of iteration to get them to make them better. But this is a thing we have to keep doing, have to keep looking at. And then I'll end with a little bit of my agency harmony framework to think about how do I think about policies and whether they're going to amplify or decrease human agency. So I really, really believe, I'm actually very hopeful, and some of that's endemic because you can't be a company leader unless you're hopeful. There's sort of a reality distortion field about any company. That's definitely my nature. But I can see real reasons for my hope. I can see real reasons for this because AI can absolutely help create a fantastic world of prosperity. Just think about AI doing all the intelligence work, all the mundane work we don't like to do. Wouldn't it be awesome if we can live in a world where we only have to work a few hours a week and we can still live? Wouldn't that be amazing? Actually, that's possible. Not unless we distribute the wealth that will accumulate to AI broadly. Because there's another possibility where only a few people could become incredibly wealthy, and everybody else is sort of still stuck on the land trying to work for those people. Like we definitely have to create, and part of that is data ownership. If data is the new oil, which it can be, it needs to be distributed. It needs to be tied to the people that actually generate it. So how do we do that? How do we improve that? And stay with their decentralized communities. And AI capability, rather than being a SaaS product, it's not a website you go to and you insert data and it gives you back intelligence. It becomes a capability that is brought to all the data. And so that's one of the things I really focus on is how do we make AI capability spread as far and wide as we can. We need many competing AIs for all of us. And open teams, that's what we do. Exactly. We actually build AIs for people, help companies, organizations, countries, or governments do that. So they're not just dependent on an outsourced intelligence, that they can actually bring it to them. And we can go into more detail with anybody interested about how we do that, but I'd love to. So these are education. The key insight to education I'd like to share with you when you think about how do we improve education is the aha moment for me was, every generation, we have to learn true things that our civilization depends on that are not intuitive. Like intuitively, we know how to live as hunter-gatherers, basically. We know how to live as tribes. We know how to live in small groups, foraging around to survive in a tribe. But our world is not that. Our world requires scale at the size our instincts don't know. But we're also gifted with a brain that can learn anything. That's the key that let humans dominate the planet, basically, in these large community civilizations. But every generation, you have to learn it again. It's like every generation wakes up having no clue about all that, and it has to be taught. And we are severely lacking. Just the things I know about that took me a while to learn, I go, wait, this isn't being taught, but it's so critical. There are critical things we don't teach systemically, and we absolutely have to. Or we're going to continue to essentially have our children and our grandchildren susceptible to manipulation, susceptible to propaganda, susceptible to essentially being a pawn in somebody else's agenda. And education is the key to separate that. So a couple things I think about. Logic. It's not about math, it's about logic. And there's some key things everybody should be learning about logic before they're 13 years old. Probability theory. I'm a big person who believes in probability theory, but there's simple things. I'm not talking about statistics, I'm not talking about t-tests, I'm talking about Bayes' rule. I'm talking about logical reasoning. And if you haven't heard of the Cox theorems that show that Kolmogorov probability and Bayes' rule are the logical way to deal with uncertainty, You should look it up because we actually know this. We know that probability reasoning is how to deal with uncertainty, but it's not done very well. Look no farther than the predictive financial sheets that you get as a business owner. And they're like, here's a number. If you're talking about the future and you're just giving someone a number, you're kind of lying to them. Because there's a probability distribution. Everything in the future has got to be reasoned about, is there uncertainty about it. So you don't know a number, you might know a distribution. So at least give 2 numbers, mean and variance. At least that, for example, would show that, oh, we're reasoning about this a little bit better. But we're not, we struggle. Then the other thing is, I didn't learn this until I was 30 years old, even though I went through school and studied everything. Not everything, obviously. This is taught a little bit, but not enough. It's the principle that economic calculation and ownership is critical to prosperity. To scale prosperity, you have to have lots of people owning things, trading those things, and from that emerges money, prices, and prices how you scale coordination. That's how you coordinate at scale. Without prices, you can't coordinate at scale. Now, maybe there are other ways to do that, but we've learned that as a society, how to use prices to coordinate at scale, and our kids don't know it. And because they don't know it, we make all kinds of silly associations in our head that aren't true. Now, this doesn't answer all the questions. There's still greed. There's still people that try to take advantage of you. There's still centralized ownership. There's still lots of stuff that is true that's happening. But the fundamental aspect of ownership leading to prices, leading to distribution of cooperation at scale is still critical. And then brain biases. Lots of brain biases. In fact, that's how we're usually manipulated, is our brain biases lead us to go a direction that we really, if we understood them, would maybe guard against. Entrepreneurship. I love this. I'll talk to anybody about this for hours and hours. How do you actually build more companies, build more solutions? How do you do it efficiently? How do you do it quickly? How do you avoid some of the rabbit holes, some of the challenges that can occur? AI will replace what people do for work now, so we need many, many more jobs. That means lots of entrepreneurship. So we need 10x the support of entrepreneurship that we have. Every society needs to amplify their support of entrepreneurship, and that means lots of things. We can go into detail about it, but the key thing is you first have to recognize that's a thing we got to do. And then capital reform. AI can lead to immense prosperity, but it has to be distributed. How do we do that? It's an important question. Just started thinking about that, especially as I have a fund and I'm trying to sponsor entrepreneurs, and I built a company and I've struggled through some of the issues that come up when you're trying to build a company. How do we pass that along, and how do we enable access to capital? That's one way I would say, broad access to the capital to enable widespread investment. Distributed decision making about what capital should invest in. That right there would help us. If you look at a society and say, who's making the decisions about where money should go? And the fewer people that are making those decisions, I guarantee the worst outcomes you're going to get, because people don't know enough. Individuals don't know enough. It's an information asymmetry fundamentally, and the only way out of that is actually distribution of that decision-making network. And that means you can actually measure a society by where's the capital ownership. How many people are making decisions about where money goes? It's really, really important, and that's something that policy could help, but it's an important thing to realize that the key is to have increased ownership and more people making decisions about where next investments go. That way we have the best hope of ensuring that a world is human directed. One of the ways I like to think about this is I'm evaluating policies, evaluating, is this going to be good or bad, because it's really hard. And this is a way I try to break it down so I can have conversations with people and see what they think, and then come up with rubrics about what I'm going to support or not support. I call it my agency harmony framework. This is kind of exploring with ChatGPT an idea about, okay, I really want to promote human agency. What divisions of human agency are there? And we came up with 13. It's reduced it down to 3 dimensions of agency, showing that Venn diagram: personal, physical, relational. And I want to increase agency in all 3. We can talk more about that. So I'll leave you with questions rather than answers, and get you thinking about what are some of your answers to these questions. These were questions that were recently posed to me. I kind of gave some answers in just an informal interview, and I thought I'll just pose those to this audience and see what you think, and maybe start a conversation. What scares you the most about where AI is headed? What excites you the most about where AI is headed? How important to you is AI sovereignty, or the notion of lots of models out there? And if you had to give one piece of advice to people adopting AI, what would it be? I think it's a good question we can ask each other. And with that, I'll say thank you, and if there's time for questions, really appreciate being here.
I think you had the word wow on that word cloud, right? I think we need to increase that font size a little bit on the wow. While you were presenting, I was continuously thinking, what is my biggest takeaway? And to be honest, I really don't know. There's so many things, and I think that is maybe the the thing to take away. There's a lot of responsibility that we have as humans, and how do we want this AI to affect our lives. So Travis has a few questions for you. I'll let you answer those either for yourself, blog about them, write about them, talk to Travis about them. But do you have any questions for Travis at this point? And I know you do.
Scared you all away.
I do. I don't know which one yet, but I have a lot of questions. Let me get the microphone over there.
Hi. Quick question. There's a theory that I read recently that we're entering like a post-literate society. The idea that people aren't learning from reading anymore. They're learning from watching TikTok and YouTube videos and things like that. And they're not really like thinking critically because they're no longer reading. What do you think about that?
That's a really good observation. I haven't heard that term specifically like that, but it's a good point. Like, we are doing more listening. I even saw a survey, for example, where it said, type in your survey, or if you want, you can record a video and give it to us. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Talk about post-literacy, we're going to assume you can't. You know, that's interesting. Socrates might be happy. You know, Socrates was opposed to literacy. So that was one of the early days of technology opposition in the society. You had the thinker of the day, Socrates, like, no, literacy will hurt us. We'll stop being able to recite ballads and the Odyssey and Iliad. We won't be able to memorize them anymore. And that is true. We stopped being able to do that widely. But I actually think literacy is a good thing. It's really helped us learn more and process more. I do think that's a good point. I think that's one of the dangers and one of the things that clearly when education, I didn't list it there because we actually do a decent job of having education teach people to read and write. Now, maybe not critically think and write productively, but it's a good point. I think it's a good observation. We're not going to get away from people wanting to watch and engage with people. That's not going to happen. Lost audio, but that's okay. We're not going to get away from that. But it's a good question. I would say be cautious. Yeah, I would say that's an interesting point, interesting observation. Thanks for sharing it. Mic down here. There is a mic. It's on. Hello. It's on. Switch is on. Yes, it is on. Switch is on. There we go.
Hi. During your presentation, you mentioned that you are building on a solution that people should own their AI. I couldn't fully understand this concept. Can you elaborate, like, how does a person own, like they create their own LLM model, like a single computer, or do you mean that it has to be like...
how will people actually have their own personal AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially you have these massive models with a lot of weights, but you can actually condense them, especially if the data set is smaller. One of my observations and my beliefs about these massive models, they're actually an optimization technique. And what we actually need is a lot of smaller models, but we found better optimization point, a better starting points with the big models. So it may be that these big models just become better search spaces for us, a way to search this large, high-dimensional space better with lots of compute. But then to build a model for you, it can be smaller, maybe only 1 billion parameters, right? And a 1 billion parameter model could fit on a device. Memory is cheaper, and that model can fit. We do need some ability for the compute to run. So yeah, it would work on a single desktop. It would work on a device that would sit in your home, sit in your computer, sit in your laptop. We do have the ability to run these models. Some of these models are not exactly the same, but they're a subset that maybe are fit to purpose to understand you. That's what I mean. And you could have lots of them because you have a gigabyte of data, gigabyte of memory, and a little bit of compute. You can use it. Think of it, AI on the edge. You could look up AI on the edge and how that's coming. NVIDIA's putting Jetson chips, but there's much more. There's more of that to come. AI on the edge.
All right. Well,
all right,
thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've heard that the breaks have been shortened, so that means that we have to double our speed during the break. So talk a little bit faster, drink your coffee faster. Still enjoy those breaks, and we'll see you back in the next session. And let's give one big round of applause for Travis.